Good evening, everybody. This is starting a new chapter in Murray and I's adventure. We're calling this Murray's Run. And Murray and I were fortunate enough to get together up in Orangeville last month in May and walk the property. And when we got together, Murray gave me a whole new group of photographs. So that's what we're going to do here tonight, is start looking at these photographs. So Murray, good evening. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
All right. Well, I was able to get all the pictures that you gave me scanned, and then Murray also gave me a bunch of 35mm slides, and I got all those converted. So I'm not sure if we'll get through all of them tonight, but we're going to start working our way through it. So Murray, this was one that I thought was really interesting. So if I understood this right, this was actually the January of 1960. So before the ski resort was even open. Is that correct?
Well, before it was even purchased.
Oh, before, okay. Was this like when you were telling me that you guys went on what came up to the valley to ski, and then you came up to the top of the hill, or what is the story behind this picture?
Well, in January 1960, your dad and my dad and I were skiing at Twin Hearths in the valley, and it was a good day, lots of snow and lots of cars in the parking lot. And when we, started to head home, Harold said to Lloyd, we should look into whether or not there's a business in this ski industry thing, because we just looked at a really full parking lot and a lot of people skiing happily. So I thought, well, I don't remember what I thought about that, but the next weekend, my dad had contacted Paul Starr Real Estate in Orangeville. Do you have any land that might do for a ski hill? And they said, well, take a look at this. He gave us a description, and we were there the next weekend, Dad and I. Walked up the hill, all the way up the hill, sidestepping up the fifth line right to the top of the hill, which had a whole bunch of snow on it at that time, which was extremely unusual, but there it was. And we said, wow, this looks like a ski hill to us. That little dotted line in the photo, is I added that to show where the pommel lift went. But that was taken in January 1960, I can guarantee it. I did a whole panorama.
And how deep was the snow when you were standing up there?
That's a long time ago, but it was at least a foot, maybe more than that, 16 inches deep at the top of the hill, which is very, very windy spot, but it hadn't blown much since that snow fell. And I don't know why, but that's what it was like that first time. And had we known the real truth, namely that little spot we're looking at with all the white snow was bare most of the time.
All right, so like you're saying, this green line is where the lift line would have been.
Yeah, so, and all those trees there, they've all grown in since. That was a pasture at that time. I don't think we cut any of those trees in that group to the right. But when we walked through them and over to Murray's Run, I just was so amazed. Again, I should know about forestry. And again, I wasn't totally surprised, but it was a surprise for sure.
Yeah. So obviously the fifth line would be off to the right.
Right there. Yeah.
So this would have been the fifth line trail coming down this way. And then on this side of the lift would have been the Wendigo.
Yep.
And then somewhere, I see a little green spot here. Is this like where Murray's Run would have been?
That green spot is where I was standing when I think Dad took a panorama a little while later or something like that. But I would say that is precisely where this toboggan is resting, or at least it's where I was standing. I wasn't standing there taking the picture. Somebody was, well, maybe I was standing there. Dad took the picture in this case. I had wandered around over there into the woods to just check out the landscape, and Dad was, up at the top checking it out from there.
You know what? As I zoom in, I think this is probably you over here.
Well, okay, that's it. And the dot was maybe where Murray's Run is.
Okay. Yeah, that now that you mentioned, I didn't notice that before, but yeah, that looks like somebody standing there.
Yeah, and the big tree off to the left is the tree that's lying down dead now. I think that one or one, well, that one or one near it. I'm not sure which.
Okay.
They were trees in a pasture. That whole thing was pasture not too many years before we found it. Not the forest, it was forest. The pasture was cleared.
Yeah. Something I find interesting looking at this picture is, so this is where the cable tow went up, right?
Yep.
On this knob down here.
We called it the knob.
Okay. It doesn't look like it's heavily wooded right now, or maybe it's just.
Well, no, it had been logged sometime prior to that. I don't know how soon, but partly I think because of the steepness of the slope, trees didn't do quite as well. But again, I'm not really savvy about what slopes do to tree growth, et cetera. You know, I'm kind of a layman forester, but I'm not a well-educated one.
Yeah.
It would have been the soil type because that was so steep after the, you know, the ice left that most of the topsoil would have run off fairly readily on all three sides of that knob.
Right.
But there were much bigger trees on the north side, the west side to your left, and the right side to the east had poplars mostly, as I recall. And that might have been a result of some logging, but I don't know that. That's before my time.
So what's the I'm assuming you just took two pictures, right?
Well, I think that may be one, but I have another set of 4 pictures in a row that go a little farther to the right and left, I think. I think I still have them here.
Yeah, I'm just curious the way that you cut this out. Was this in something, or why?
Well, no, it was 2 photographs taken from exactly the same spot, you know, attempting to make a panorama, but they weren't exactly alike. So I got a razor blade out or whatever, and I tried to fit them together as best I could.
Okay.
So there's some little imperfections there, but it was the best I could do.
Okay.
And I know the you know, the hills in the background very intimately, and I know the horizon, and I know, you know, the neighborhood quite well.
Okay. Yeah, that's like the very beginning.
It is.
Yeah.
It's before the beginning. It's before we even made an offer to buy the land.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
So this
Sim.
is, yep. So this is one of the things that you gave me here. So this obviously is early because there's Han's name on there.
That would have been the first winter.
Okay.
2,000-foot pomelift. It was a bit of a stretch, but it was close to true. We had to embellish it. We had very little facilities, but, you know, long run groom trails when we had the means to groom them, etc. Ski shop, ski school. Well, it wasn't lying, but as with many ski resorts, you kind of stretch things a bit now and then.
So down here where it says the large practice area with 2 rope toes.
Yeah, yeah.
So did you actually have on that beginner's hill, was there actually 2 rope toes there? Or
we built the 2 rope toe, or the double rope toe. It wasn't 2 separate drive units. It was one that went 2 directions. Yeah, we built that in Brantford, Ontario at the time, probably about the time the pomelift was being installed, summer of 60.
Yeah. Do you know,
was there from
these initials down here or whatever?
Oh, Sim, my mom had somehow gotten a card somewhere, and she was on board this. She was excited about this, you know, family thing. And she saw that somewhere and said, "Oh, Lloyd, look at this. Isn't it wonderful? We could have this as a logo." So there it is. And Sim was the artist. I think she even got permission or tried to get permission from whomever published the thing. I don't remember the whole story, but
so you're saying this picture was something that your mom saw that she liked?
Yep.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And she was artistic, and you know, she didn't know how to ski anyway, and the position wasn't all that illustrative of skiing. Although downhill skiers often sat like that with their butt on the back of their skis and whatever.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I was wondering about that. So
yeah, I've seen that many times.
Yep. So I think that's the front side, and then this was the back.
Yeah.
And this is kind of nice. It's got the name of the trails.
Yeah.
So obviously this is pretty early because they don't have any of the stuff for the cable tow over here going up to the.
Yeah, not even the rope tow.
Yeah.
I mean, the pinned in blue parts are things I put in, but I don't know who did the artwork, but it leaves a little bit to be desired.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you had to see it and ski it to really appreciate what was there, because you couldn't even see it from the parking lot, which was a problem. But
Yeah.
well, it does show beginner's area with tow, yeah, not in much detail, but it was a really interesting kind of rope tow. But that's part of the history of ski tows that I want to go into sometime.
This is just another version. So that
isn't that the same one?
Well, it's just a little bit different layout.
Oh, okay.
And then it basically says the same stuff, but on the back of this one had this card, or this was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that was to get people out of the parking lot and up the hill. Give them a free ride.
So when it said a free ride on the pommel lift, was that like, could they ski all day, or what did?
Oh, I think it only meant one trip, but people probably stretched that.
Okay.
Things were pretty loose in the beginning. And to be fair, it only cost $2 for a day pass.
Oh, is that what it was?
$2.
Wow. Okay.
You try and convince somebody at a big ski resort that they once could have skied for $2 and they'll look at you as if you're crazy.
Do you have any idea when it said as far as watch the Telegram ski page for every Thursday for special events and free draw and valuable
Well,
prizes?
yeah, that was our main advertising vehicle, I would say, the papers in Toronto. Because there were other ski hills, including the ones up at Blue Mountain. They all put ads in the paper, and I think even ski reports occasionally, but the ski reports were on the radio, and we used to phone them in Saturday and Sunday morning or whatever other days we were running, and they'd broadcast it on a couple of radio stations in Toronto. That was the market.
All right. I'm not sure if I got this from you or if I got this from my sister.
No, you got it from me probably, although what that was a few years later, you know, partly I guess because we had so little snow the first few years that Dad and I or one of us would go skiing at some other place. And it was mostly me because Dad was, there looking after the place. But that was a card I would take with me, and I'd be going up to Collingwood and seeing if I could get a day free skiing. And because we were in the association, the owners association, I don't know that I ever had to use one of those, but it was just to allow them to know who I was and that they should consider giving me a discount or a free pass.
Okay.
I don't remember how often I used it or if I did, but it was handy.
Yeah. All right.
And other people did it too. Like we would give free skiing to somebody who came from Horseshoe Valley and said, "Oh, I want to see your place. So go skiing for a day, friend."
Okay. This is something that my sister sent me.
Canadian Ski Association. I don't remember that exact term. Toronto Ski Club. Yeah, Southern Ontario Ski Zone, I remember, yes. That would have been I don't know if that was the racers or the instructors or some of each. Not the racers likely, but the Canadian Ski, I guess that name was real, but I think of other names like the Canadian Ski Instructors Alliance, CSIA, which I was a member of when I was, learning to be a teacher. And the Southern Ontario Ski Zone, we used to use that term to describe the association of ski resorts whose kids, me in this case, would go racing among one another all around Southern Ontario. And they'd have these races at various ski hills. I think we even had one the first year. But I remember skiing at a whole bunch of places and racing, having fun.
Yeah. See, I was wondering if like this card, along with that card that we just saw, would be something that, you went somewhere and you showed them that and they would give you, like you were saying, be able to ski for free somewhere else.
Well, the Toronto Ski Club is probably a clue. That happened after 1970, I think.
Yeah, it says 70, 71 on right here.
Yeah, so Toronto Ski Club entered the scene because we needed business and we made a deal. I don't remember the details of it, but Toronto Ski Club people who would have one of those cards had privileges, let's say a reduced fee on the ski pass, today's ticket. That's what that provided for them. I don't know what the discount it was, but the Toronto Ski Club at that time had a whole chunk of the Blue Mountain ski resort area, which was just Toronto Ski Club. They even had their own pommel lift and a set of trails adjacent to it. I don't know that they owned it, but they had this huge privilege up there. But some people didn't want to go that far and were happy to ski at Valley Schuss. So we tied in with Toronto Ski Club for a few years.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, let me go back. So we were, all right, let me go back to here. All right, so this is another photograph that you gave me. And this obviously is the pommel lift.
Yep, that's the fast grass.
Um,
Not much snow.
Did you do anything to the, like, was this road naturally here from when the farm was here, or did you guys make this?
No, we did not make the road. It was just the way the landscape had turned out. And we drove in there from the fifth line. There was some sort of a minor entrance, I think, from the fifth line, although I'm not sure of that. We may even have bulldozed it. But you could get to that little road from a little farther south, where there was probably the entrance to the farm, which I never was able to identify. But that was a road basically from the fifth line to the top of the hill.
Okay. And basically you would have gotten off the lift like right around here somewhere.
Yep. As soon as you passed the shack, you got off the lift.
Okay. All right. Yeah. The more pictures I see this palm lift, and we'll look at some here later, man, that thing was a wacky design.
Well, it was, but it was pretty smart. There were probably thousands of them in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
That's called a floating bow wheel.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That requires a certain amount of explanation.
Yeah, I bet. Now, I got more pictures that you gave me that look closer at that.
It was kind of problematic, but it was pretty clever, I thought.
Yeah, I like this picture.
There's Bob Young.
So what's the deal with Fort Knox, Fort Lennox and friends?
Well, that would have been not the first year, maybe I don't know how long later, but on the left there beside his torso was a roof line of a little shelter we made by digging with a backhoe in the side of that hill and putting a bunch of cedar fence posts in on either side and a roof over it, so he could get the bombardier in there to work on it in the night. Often we had to get underneath it and swear and drink beer for hours to get the darn thing to go again, and it would go. Well, Bob Young was our bulldozer guy, and he made it possible. What he was doing there was making it easier for someone who had come down the Caribou Trail to get past the chalet and over to the pommel lift without climbing up a little bit of a hill. It wasn't big, but we were always trying to make it easier for skiers, however we could. And that guy, he did a lot of our bulldozing. I spent a lot of time sitting either on or near that bulldozer, a lot of time.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Marveled at what he could do with it.
Yeah.
He had these big rippers on the back that we never really needed, but they were for digging up rock up in Collingwood. He had worked in Collingwood where it was rock a lot.
Okay.
He was from Singhampton.
Yeah, this is a picture of the craziness right here.
Yeah, that's probably Ross. Well, that's Ross Lennox. Yeah, sitting down at the bottom underneath. That's Ross, and I'm on the tower. Okay. I'm not sure who's taking the picture, but that was the bull wheel, and it was really quite zany. It'd be interesting to see a live action shot of that. But
so, as far as like its movement, like
okay, well that long horizontal pipe.
This one.
Yeah, that held a turnaround piece of metal that allowed the bars to turn around as they went around the bull wheel and go back down the hill. But if you can imagine, that bull wheel is turning and the cable is driving it at a certain speed. And when somebody gets off, especially if they take their bar off to one side or the other, you got to get the bar funneled into so it doesn't derail on the darn wheel.
That's what this is for?
Yeah, and it worked more or less, but there were times when really weird things happened and, something would break or it would get jammed. And it was quite difficult to maintain that lift.
What was this? I'm trying to point.
Okay, so that cable, this is the explanation there. To tension the cable and to allow for the stretch in the cable over the years, you had to have what we called a counterweight, something that was balanced above the ground and would lift and lower with the minute by minute change in the length of the cable due to a whole bunch of people being on the lift or no one on the lift. So that wheel, the vertical wheel there, was a cable coming from the tower, which you see in those other pictures, around the wheel and back and down to the counterweight to allow that bull wheel to move up and down. It also moved this way, which was another story, but that kept the tension on the main hauling rope, is what it was called. But it allowed, all lifts had to have some sort of a counterweight to keep a constant tension on the cable.
Was that counterweight ever on the ground, or was it always floating?
Well, only it was floating when the lift was in use. Yes, it had to be in the air. It went down to the ground when we wanted to do maintenance on it, or just lessen the tension on the cable, or even splice the cable. I don't know that we had to do that with the pommel lift, although we might have. So you could lower the counterweight. There was a winch to allow it to go up and down. A lot of work, but you could get the tension off the cable and then apply it again by lifting the counterweight. The counterweight had to be just a few inches off the ground, but enough that didn't stop providing the tension.
Yeah, that thing, I've never seen one before. I've just always, basically the T-bar on, and every time I look at that thing, it's like, man, what a contraption.
Yeah, well, the difference between that and the T-bar that we got subsequently is that the facility to slide the bull wheel up and down the hill was accommodated by the bull wheel being attached to a long steel I-beam, maybe 20 feet long, which had hanging from it the counterweight, but the I-beam was sufficiently flexible that when somebody did the wrong thing at the top of the lift, or even a small amount of variation, the bull wheel would tilt just as that one would, but it would tilt in a way that proved to be a whole lot more successful, I'll say, than that design. It was one of the features of our Skyway T-bars that made them sell. It was very well designed.
Do you have any idea what you guys were doing here? Obviously, it's in the summer or spring.
Well, it probably was not the very first summer.
It says August of '62 on the picture.
Yeah, well, we were likely painting the ski lift or something like that, or maybe greasing it. I don't really know. I don't see anyone with a paint can in their hands. But the pommel lift, it was supplied with this really weird ladder. It was one vertical piece with cross pieces, and you had to hang it. Like where I'm sitting there, if we wanted to get up, we would hang this on one of the things I was sitting on, the cross members, and then you would have to climb the darn thing, and you had to be a monkey to get up it because it would swing all over the place. I mean, kids could do it. I don't know that many adults would have wanted to do it, but it was quite. Also, it could have been improved, and we eventually did. But subsequent lifts, like the ones we used to sell, had ladders welded to them, steps all the way up, and you could just go up these steel steps and be safe.
Right. Was this lift very labor intensive? So was there a lot of maintenance in the summertime and in the wintertime, or?
We would have greased all of the wheels in the summer. We oiled the cable, and that was done at the bottom. You had to lubricate the cable each year. In the case of the pommel lift, all the bars would be at the bottom. They had to have some maintenance work done on them. Actually, many of them would get banged up by going around this bull wheel and getting whacked on one thing or another. I mean, some of them, even on the way down the hill, they'd be swinging enough that they'd whack that tower, bend the heck out of the bar or just ding it. They were really difficult to clean up, but that would be, the main maintenance. It was quite time consuming. So there was maintenance, and we had to paint it after 2 or 3 years because I think it only had one coat of paint when we bought it, and it started to get rusty pretty quickly.
Did it have, like the wheels and stuff? Did they wear out? I mean, were they pretty durable? Was that stuff that?
Well, the liners, they were made of something called neoprene, I think. In the case of pommel lifts, they were really forced into the grooves that they were in. It wasn't just a slot, it was a complicated groove. And you had to work really hard if one of those liners wore out or somehow was damaged. I talk about swearing and drinking beer, but I can watch the guys, me, screaming at these things, hammering forever to get the darn liners in.
Yeah.
The guys that worked there were really good swearers, and I learned it there from them.
Yeah, this picture on previous episodes, we've looked at a couple different versions, but when I was looking at this, I don't think we've ever seen this one. So I mean, it's fairly reminiscent of what we've looked at in the past. I can see where you kind of outline the property. It's
Yeah.
just a little bit different angle. But
Yeah, what's the pointed hill there, I forgot the name of it already, but that hill is quite graphic there. That trail wasn't there to begin with, either the one up or the one down. That was a later.
so this is the
thing.
cable tow hill, right?
Yeah.
So this is the toe would have went up here. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then this is the run down.
So what that was our nod to a really steep trail, because people were always wanting more hard trails. So I don't know what year that little cable tow went in there, but it kept the Austrian ski instructors and the good skiers happy, because you have to go up the Pomelift down to the bottom of that toe down on the Caribou, which was not all that much fun, and then up that hill, and then you got your thrill going down that steep hill, which was quite narrow and quite steep.
Yeah. I'm trying, when I was up there, we talked about the story when I came up in the summer. So that probably was, I don't know if the experience that I had up here is when you guys first had to lift in, but would you say that was sometime after 1970 that you put this?
Probably, and it probably was when the first year experience with Dad would have been when that lift was being installed.
Okay.
The cable tow. That was used from some other ski resort. Dad was buying and selling this sort of thing for a living.
Yeah, but that's another good picture. And then the other thing
It
I
is
noticed too is look how busy you were. Look at all the cars.
Well, I only went up to fly over it when the parking lot was full. This is advertising.
Yeah, well, you met the criteria there.
Yeah, it was great fun too.
Yeah.
Well, there's a line there for, what is that? Well, that's the edge of the property, I guess.
Oh, down here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where you drew a line on the photograph here and then up here.
This shows graphically the little valley that subsequently had a bridge over it down at the bottom, but that's the place where we had put our garbage in that washout. But that washout and several others were something I want to talk more about in time. About those were pre-Valley Schuss erosional features because of the land having been cleared by pioneers way back. That is an erosion gully, and there were several on the property.
Okay.
But clearly it was there because the trees were taken away. It would not have happened that way if the trees hadn't been taken away.
Right. Yeah, that's a good.
And that happened, again, this is a story we can pursue another time, but that happened primarily in this thing called the Wisdom Flood, which was in the late 1800s sometime. I'd like to know more about that too, but that flood caused a lot of erosion in that general area.
All right, well, let's kind of work our way through. So here's the chalet down here.
Yeah.
And so the lift would have been starting here, going up.
Yeah.
Here.
That's it.
So if we would have got off and came over here, this would have been the 5th line run coming down here.
Yeah, right next to the red line.
If we would have got off come this way, that's the Wendigo coming down here.
Well, the Wendigo and Murray's Run were one in that picture, I think, maybe.
Why is this one? Is this Murray's Run coming through here?
I guess it is. That's not a terrific picture, but there was no row of trees between Murray's Run and the 5th line initially. We planted them on both sides of Murray's Run. And I guess the little patch of trees there is the patch on the far side of Murray's Run. And the little vaguely visible row would be on the east side of Murray's Run. Yeah. So Murray's Run and the Wendigo and the 5th line were not distinct in that picture.
Okay.
There may have been tiny trees planted in there that I can't even see.
Yeah.
The bigger trees on there and up at the top we brought those from a nearby neighbor. Well, they may have been planted. Now I see this patches at the top there of dark trees. They were all planted in the early 60s. We did bring a few to the top of the hill, but I can't tell them from ones we planted at this point. There wasn't a lot of difference, maybe 3 years of growth between them.
Right. I was trying to see if I could see any evidence of that third T-bar.
Oh, it was not in that picture.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they
Um,
did end up at that patch of green stuff at the top, and you know where that is, but
yeah.
yeah, it's a later addition.
So when we were up there walking around, you were telling me that there were some places that were ski, I guess trails that weren't like really official trails that were, people would ski.
Well, that's not one of them. That ridge that goes down where your cursor was there, it really was never suitable to have a trail on it. And I don't know if anyone ever skied down it or, found themselves going down it. I walked up and down it many times. It was not a trail. But
Okay.
I can see bits and pieces of the wildcat and the pussycat, I think, in that picture.
That'd be over in here somewhere, right?
Yeah. Again, I'm struggling here a little bit. It may be that in that photo, the last T-bar had been put in. There's a little clearing near the top of the hill where the T-bar ended. That clearing there probably represents the lift line and the wildcat, just to the right of your cursor there. And that would be, I guess, the lift line for that T-bar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and this dark strip of, can you see my finger?
No.
Oh, okay, so there's a dark strip of trees would be mostly hemlock.
These up there?
On the western, no, part way down. These are not planted.
Oh.
But that T-bar went alongside that. They were the only hemlocks we had, but that hillside that we put the lift on, I think I had to cut hemlocks down, which was always painful because they weren't all that common. But yeah, that again, forester's question. I often wondered why the hemlocks only grew in that particular area, and I don't know what it had to do with. It may have been light, slope, soil type. I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another interesting picture.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we took those. And that ridge that goes down, through the upper left corner of the picture there, way beyond up there, that one. Yeah. Now the Bruce Trail, I take it, goes along that. We never got that far.
No, we basically got up to right.
I want to go and see that.
Oh, yep.
That's on my bucket list.
Yeah, if I remember right, the trail drops off pretty good because you're going down into this ravine.
That's a ravine from the Wisdom Flood, another one.
Yep.
Big one.
Another great photograph.
Yeah, very good.
All right.
Okay, many years later.
Yeah, well, when I started looking at this, the more I zoomed in and started looking at it. So tell me about this picture.
Okay. When Dad died, he had arranged already to have a buyer for a used ski lift, a T-bar, from Glen Eden Ski Hill on the Niagara Escarpment near Milton, Ontario. He died, and I said to Mom, "Oh, what am I going to do now?" or whatever. Maybe I'll try taking over that aspect of his business, and this deal had already been made. I had that truck at the time. It was purchased after Dad died for the purpose of, with my truck, moving this ski lift from Milton, Ontario, up to Northern Ontario, in a little town called Larder Lake near Kirkland Lake, but it was a long way. And for some reason, I brought it home to our yard and laid it all out. That's the bars on the left and the motor on the left, the timber jack in the middle that made it possible to lift all this stuff, all around. So that was my first phase of my business, moving ski lifts. It's the only one I ever, the only big one. I moved maybe a rope tow or two or a cable tow or two, but that was in the middle of this move. And in the middle of it, I broke my arm. I was driving a little Ford tractor around mowing the grass on the yard. I had planted those trees, by the way.
So where is this picture or where was this picture
It's right
taken?
between mom and dad's house and the fifth line. The
Okay.
laneway is right there on the other side of the timberjack.
This is the driveway right here.
Yeah, the
Okay.
truck and the timberjack are both adjacent to the driveway.
And then the fifth line would be out this way to the
Yeah,
left?
and to the right would be the shop that was already there at that time. This
Okay.
is the separate building Dad built.
Yeah. So this is essentially a lift and pieces on the ground.
Well, you don't see the intermediate towers, but they were there as well. Maybe some of them in the left
Okay.
there. But I had the whole lift there. Must have been a huge amount of work. That trailer, again, after Dad died, I said, well, what am I going to do? You know, Mom was there and we talked about it. And we decided that she would lend me, I think, $10,000 or something like that to try and get myself into this business if I had the courage to do it or whatever, the knowledge. So I bought that trailer made in the Hockley Valley, handmade by some welder locally to haul bales, I think, at the time. This was early in the round, big round bale era.
Mhm.
But I had the truck. So the trailer came with a fifth wheel that we bolted into the back of the truck. I had the trailer, I have pictures of it on edge. When I was fixing it, I had to take the whole deck off it and replace it and rewire the lights and on and on and on. And with a broken arm at the time. And then put it all on the trailer, took 3 or 4 trips to Northern Ontario. And it was like a 7-hour drive with a broken arm driving that nice big pickup truck into Northern Ontario to put the lift in the yard of this little ski hill that the town of Larder Lake owned. Anyway, I probably have a tower in the forks of the timberjack right there. Yeah, that's one of the intermediate towers in the forks of the lift. I'm always showing off the timberjacks, whatever, it's good points. Complete with the arm that I had to repaint because it got twisted all to hell when somebody tried to flip the timberjack over, bent the arm. I had to patch it up. Yeah.
So these are the T-bars.
Yeah.
What?
That's an intermediate tower.
Okay, over here.
Yeah.
And
the cable on the left, that's the cable.
Okay, yep, all right, I was gonna ask you that. So tell me about this motor. This is for the lift?
Yeah, and the lift was a design that I was not familiar with. I don't think I ever really learned who built it, but it was at this Glen Eden ski hill, and they were, expanding or adding chair lifts to take place of T-bars, and Dad knew all these guys and knew what was for sale and who wanted what. And he brokered a deal between Larder Lake, town of Larder Lake, that had a rope tow, but really wanted something bigger. So he said, well, what about this? So they said, okay. And he never would sell a ski lift until he had already sold it. He knew he had a buyer and a contract before he would even put a down payment on purchasing it. He probably paid for the whole thing when he got it, but I don't suppose it was worth, I don't know, 15 or 20,000, maybe. I'm not sure what the value of these things was, but that motor was different than others, or that motor slash drive mechanism. You can see the pulleys there that would have turned big belts. I think they're sitting on the motor there, and some sort of a brake at the far end, a clutch or brake or whatever. Again, it was a design I was not familiar with, but we put it up, we being me, mostly the town of Larder Lake, their works department. And I was there to supervise for a whole summer. And I got it running, and I went back a few times. And I think I even skied a little bit on it. It was my first and only effort at, really doing the whole thing with a big ski lift.
So this is the bull wheel back here?
That's the bull wheel. Yep.
Okay. And then the other thing I noticed, it looks like this is one of those caps for the hydrants.
Well, it is, and I'm not sure why it was there. There's a big mosquito trying to eat it on my screen, but anyway, looks like a garbage can on top of that. It probably was covering like maybe the gearbox or something like that, just to keep the rain off.
Okay.
And the can on top would be to cover the 2 holes in the top of that shield that would have let rain in too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one motor was enough to drive that Lift, huh?
That would have been a 50 horsepower electric motor.
Wow.
That's a lot of horsepower.
Yeah.
Our original pommel lift, I think, was 40. And the T-bar, I think maybe was up in the 700 series, like 70 horsepower.
Okay.
A lot of electricity.
Yeah. No, that's a pretty cool picture with all the parts and pieces.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I kind of, I very carefully set that picture up, or, set the scene up.
Yeah.
I was, an amateur photographer in a way.
Well,
Really nice shot of my timberjack.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell all your fans where this is?
Well, it's in the yard of my parents' home.
So, well, I mean now.
Oh, now it's just down the road at my friend's place where my sawmill is.
So you still own it?
I still own it, and I got it in 1964. It's well, I'd say one owner, but some other person had bought it and then brought it back, and Timberland Ellicott said, we want to design a loader for a timberjack, and they built that loader, one of a kind, only one ever built, and I own it.
And you own it to this day?
Yeah, they had a blade on them. All the timberjacks had a blade on them, and that one did, but they just took it off and built the loader to replace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really oddball timberjack. Serves me well.
I just think that's cool. You still have it today.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up on our hour.
Okay.
Do you want to? Or you need to?
Well, I'll go on if you want to.
All right. We can look at a couple more.
My neck gets sore when I lean over this way. Can I lean back and? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right. Let me see what else we got here.
Oh, right. Well, that's after the fire. They being the club that owned the place, they built a shed, like a drive shed out where the boneyard used to be.
The hut?
And after they had run it for a couple of years, they folded, and I was able to store my stuff in that building, and that's the tractor and the timberjack.
Is that what you called the hut?
No, that I don't know what I called it, but it was a nice big building, brand new. It was lockable. Like they had done various things, and it had all the rental skis and other things because they were strapped for space after the chalet burned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is just you storing your stuff in the.
Yeah, I had two or 3 years in which I had a bunch of my stuff in there, and eventually I moved it all. Oh, the hut! My goodness.
Is that what we were looking at in that previous?
Well, I don't know. I don't know why I wrote that. Well, that's a catchphrase I've had for most of my life. Back in Brantford, when this thing first happened, we had a little shack my friends and I had built with materials from the aluminum window and door business, and I called it the hut. And I have a whole set of pictures of that. If you haven't seen them, you will. It's the beginning of my long-standing love affair with small buildings, but I just threw that on for a yuck really sometime later.
But is this picture we're looking at? Oops, this picture here, is that where this equipment is?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. And so, like you were saying earlier, so when the ski resort was in operation, this was not here?
Well, it was there for the last year or two. Like it ran for a couple years, I'm not sure which, after the fire.
Okay, so they built
that was
this
there during that time. They built it because of the fire.
Gotcha. Okay. And what did they use this space for then? Like everything?
Well, initially there's ski rentals and for the slope grooming machines to get in, like the shop had been burnt with the chalet. I don't know if they could get the slope groomer in there, but I wasn't using it at the time that was in use. I was out of the picture pretty much. But it was, their outbuilding. They might even have had ski school out of there. I don't know what all they did. Somebody else would have to answer that question. Okay. But it's right where the boneyard used to be.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, the hut is my comment.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the mother.
I thought you said you never got any snow up there.
Not never. Sometimes we did. That's a good picture. I'd forgotten that one. Yeah, well, that was mom and dad's apartment on to her left,
Yeah, yeah,
and the hot stove room to the right. Well, to her near left.
yeah. Because this was the entrance or a door, right, to get
Yeah,
in.
that went into that big room, and the apartment was the left half, and the hot stove room was the right half.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have very fond memories of this. Like when I came up as a kid, stayed with your folks. This,
Yeah.
this is where I stayed here.
Okay, and there was a big pot-bellied stove in the middle of it.
Yep. Yeah.
Gordon Lennox.
I remember being up here in the wintertime and the summertime in this.
Yeah, well, that's nice.
But yeah, I was like, wow, there's a lot of snow there.
There was. I mean, some years there would be a lot of snow.
Yeah.
That could even have been, 1 year after the season was over, we got a couple of feet of snow in about a week. That could have been then. I mean, we always like to take pictures when there was lots and lots of snow.
Yeah. I can't remember if I asked you this, but do you remember what year they put this edition on?
It was pretty soon after the first winter, but it wouldn't have been the second year, I don't think, but I'm not really sure.
Okay. So it was pretty early on then, early 60s?
Yeah, pretty early. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Dad, he wanted to be there as much as he could, and Mom too. And she was all that, 80 miles away in Brantford.
Right.
And, so they could be together, and, they lived there once we sold the house in Brantford.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things, if we come up on some of these slides, I'll ask you, but one of the challenges that I had when I was converting them is if I had the images like reversed or whatever, does this look like it's
that's actual. That's actual, yeah.
Okay, all right. So
Rosie and Percy had a garden that was just beyond the tractor. That stopped at some of their garden, I think. Yeah, and it was maybe outside the actual piece that they ended up purchasing from us, but that would have been early 60s.
is that your tractor?
Yep.
Okay, and your trailer?
Yeah. That's me underneath it. It just drove over me.
And you still have parts of this trailer?
I'm pretty sure I have parts of that trailer in the yard right now. Yes.
Yeah, I thought I remember you telling me that.
It didn't have parts of the tractor.
That's a pretty full picture, I guess. Yeah.
A really nice picture. I'm glad to see that. Again, a lot of these pictures have just been waiting for me to see them many years later. It's a nice shot of Percy and Rosie's yard.
Where would you been standing to take this picture?
At the top of the rope tow.
Okay. Is that part of the?
That's the bottom of the other half of the rope tow. Yes.
Okay.
All Not the drive terminal, but the return terminal.
Gotcha.
We learned about doing that odd thing with rope tows from Hockley Valley Ski Club, I think, because they had maybe two rope tows that went up to a certain spot, and then you had to get off, and you'd make a sharp turn on your skis, and then you get on again and go up the rest of the way up the hill. I think Dad.
So what was the challenge that you couldn't have one continuous one that you had to?
Oh, well, no, the fact is it was two small hills and we wanted to service both of them. One was a little steeper than the other. If we could do it with one drive near the electricity, which was on the other side to the right of the picture. So that the rope went up the hill, made a sharp right turn, down the hill, around something at the bottom, just an idler thing, back to the top and back down. So it was like an L-shaped pattern up two separate hills, not one hill, just two separate, well, the same hill, but it's hard to describe that in words. Service two slopes to ski on. You either ski right down in front of you, or you ski behind off to the right, a different slope down to the chalet. Oh, wow.
All right. I think this is Murray's Run,
Well, I guess it is Murray's Run, yes.
but this would be, I need to flip this picture, don't I? The turn should be going to the right, not the left.
Well, I don't think you need to flip it. The background tells me you don't need to flip it. No, you go right down to bump there and then you turn right. And down there, the Bombardier had, what, I had just driven up there on a day when you had traction enough to get up
Okay.
on Murray's Run. No, I had driven up all the way up, but it's a sharp right turn. You can see a cut. I'm not sure we got the right word. Down, down, down. Right there. That's where we had to cut into the hill to get, something still probably to cover the wet spot on Murray's Run farther down.
So where would the deck be?
Well, to the right where that conifer tree is, keep
Over.
going in there somewhere.
Okay.
I don't think the deck is in that picture. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah.
The location of it.
Okay.
Again, yeah, my memory is not perfect about these things, Harold, but the cut on the very left side of the picture is where the toboggan toe remains would be or were, maybe even at that time.
Okay.
I think they landed there very early on, maybe even the first winter.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that ridge, you can see that ridge in the middle foreground there. That's the one that goes all the way down to the chalet.
This one?
Yeah, and it would be, the Wildcat / the new T-bar, etc. It's a little hard to tease out some of the details there, however. I'm interested in nice big birch trees there that I don't remember every species in every individual tree, but
Yeah.
I certainly drove up and down Murray's Run there, God knows, 10,000 times in the middle of the night mostly. Yeah, there's the fast grass. Yeah, that's early on in the tree planting. Now, where are we? Fifth line, yes. Okay, wow, it's all forest now. Amazing.
So does this picture look like it's oriented right?
It is, but it's from the top of the T-bar looking northeast. The fifth line is running through that picture in the middle.
Is this the fifth line?
No, go down, down, down. Now that's on the fifth line. Go to your left, straight across the photograph, all along there, up a bit. Up, yeah, that's the fifth line going down, down, down. Yeah, and that is a field beyond on the other side of the road. That's
Okay.
Dr. Frieder's field that he planted in trees, and I logged in that bush off to the right years and years later. When the chalet burned, I was off in that bush.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you too many stories, Harold.
So you planted all these trees here, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I wonder what time of year, I mean, obviously it's winter time. I'm just wondering, because I remember you saying the challenge was keeping snow on top of the hill here.
Well, yeah, early on, the first few years, we relied really entirely on snow fence to keep the snow from blowing away. And that was dicey too. So we right away, we knew we had to plant trees and, improve that situation. Then snowmaking came along and it was less critical. But you can see the gap in that snow fence right just to the left. That's how, I think that would have been the farmer's original laneway going across the hill, around the edge of the hill to the barn location.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that when I saw
Yeah,
that.
well, it got around the top of the hill. Some poor farmer spent a lot of time digging the side of that hill out because it wasn't there when he built that little roadway, but he had to have a place or a way to get from his barn to the fields, which were right there.
Yeah.
He couldn't go straight up to the top of the hill because it was just too steep. Yeah, that's a really nice picture.
Yeah.
I look forward to looking at some of these with you. We're sitting at the same desk sometime. Wow.
Another winter where you didn't get any snow.
Oh my gosh. Well, we got some. That's really interesting. I don't remember that at all.
You had written, one of the nice things I was going to tell you on a lot of those slides, you had notes on them.
Yeah, yeah.
So the note on here was, this is the fifth line.
Wow.
So I'm assuming these pines on the left are the ones that you planted.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'm assuming this is
That's
the,
interesting. It must have been after a storm from the east if it got snow on those branches, because that's the west side of the road and the east side of the trees. Like the heavy snows would come on an east wind typically.
okay.
Yeah, I know the scenery in the background well. Yeah, I guess that is the zip line, and the little hill off to the right is it's part of the neighboring farm through which the Bruce Trail goes, I guess, from judging from what we saw of it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's the pommel
Yep. You guys you have written down or you're putting hay down. So
lift on dirt.
yeah. Was that, you think this was like pretty early on after doing some
Oh.
excavating to try to stabilize the,
Well, the excavating was done so that you could have Murray's Run arrive at the bottom of the pommel lift. You had to do some excavating on the hill because it was just a little valley. So we had to make a flat spot out of the hillsides with fill. So we cut whatever we could. That may represent a big cut. Like see way up high, there's this dark colored mark.
yeah,
They probably had to drag some dirt all the way down from there, spread it around Murray's Run. I don't know what's in there. Is that the tractor in the picture?
back here?
Well, I don't know that. I think that's the old red truck that came from
Yeah,
Cargill.
no, you're right. I think that is, no, it looks like somebody standing here and somebody standing here.
Spreading hay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have just piles of, sometimes we buy crappy hay that was frozen because it had water in it. We had to take an axe to each bale and chip off a chip of it. And they'd set those side by side in a kind of a square pattern and stomp them down and hope that it would snow to cover it.
Yeah, it looks like you got a bunch of bales back here.
Yeah, so that would have been the first winter.
Okay. And then obviously the pommel lift, the bottom here.
Yeah, and it had a brace, that thing that goes diagonally to the left. It really constricted the trail width.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, but it was necessary. Yeah, you don't really see the works of the terminal, but that was the terminal.
Yeah.
And that box on the left was the power supply.
Yep. I don't remember when we were there. I don't remember this power pole still being here.
It was probably gone. It was not the hydro line, the main line. It was a short offshoot from the main line
Yeah.
to the bottom of the pommel lift. Wow. I guess that's the pommel, but maybe it's the T-bar.
No, that's the pommel lift.
Okay, yeah, it is. And those first ski racks we made, Gordon Lennox made those things. People will have the first winter. I don't think we had them, and you had to just leave your skis on the ground and hope they'd stay there.
Yeah. It looks like a nice winter day.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something only a ski instructor would pick out, but the left hand of the woman in the foreground is holding her ski pole incorrectly, but she doesn't know that. The strap is supposed to go in your hand between the handle and whatever. Anyway, it's just a lot of people didn't know how to do it, and that's how they did it.
Oh, interesting.
Very small detail. Ski instructor would know it right away.
Very, very sharp eye there.
Well, that was a ski instructor. Saw a lot of people with it.
This is the same picture
Yeah.
we looked at before. I think I was trying to play around and invert them to see if it looked different, but
Yeah, I think that where your cursor is there is confusing me a bit. It may be not the first winter, but soon after that, we widened that top part of Murray's Run and took the glade that I had referred to out.
okay.
Murray's Run was always fairly narrow. I mean, all the trails were narrow. None of them were really as wide as they should have been, to be fair. And that may have been after the first go round at widening Murray's Run.
Yeah.
It has to be Murray's Run. Oh, yeah. And that's what we call that, the T-bar, the one we built.
That's the
With-
one we looked at, some previous pictures where you and your buddies were.
Yeah, that's the
hanging
one
on.
with the cockshut tractor final drive
Okay.
and the map. And the fence down there, you can see that fence going diagonally up. That kept people from, if they had gone up the T-bar and were coming down, you could actually, early on, you could go right down the hill, across the little valley and up the rope tow.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We wanted to stop that from happening because people were, banging into one another or whatever.
Yeah.
Bottom. Oh, that's after the addition. So that would have been a couple of years after the beginning.
Yep.
That's the first edition.
Um, before they built the chalet, like, did they basically build this?
They
Ground.
knocked off the top. There was a hill there about the height of the chalet.
Okay.
You just bulldozed it all off and spread it around.
Okay.
So there'd be room for the chalet.
Now, is this the T-bar that you were saying earlier that was too close to the chalet and people couldn't?
Well,
didn't
it was,
really-
the problem with it mostly was at the top, the terminal interfered with a skier who was coming down the fifth line and back over to the chalet because they'd have to walk through the returning T-bars to get to the chalet. It was the terminal constricted the space at the top of that hill such that we said, we got to do better than this. And we moved it over to a hill that was somewhat higher and much more out of the way, and it made its own separate little area almost, because, if the pommel lift had broken down, there was nowhere to ski except the rope tow, which was not that much fun. So when we moved that T-bar, we had our own little area. It would run if the pommel lift wasn't, or whatever, vice versa. But it was just a strategic or logistical change that seemed obvious, but after the fact, we did the wrong thing the first time around.
Yeah. All right, Marie, well, I think this is a pretty good spot to, we'll stop for this evening.